All right, Adam and Rudi,
Hey,
thank you so much. And thank you everybody that is watching here today and those that will watch this later on YouTube. I am Carrie Rose O'Connell, your fellow member and support for New Mexico Women in Film. And I have connected with Adam Rabinowitz. Did I say that right, Adam?
you said it perfectly.
Awesome. And I had the pleasure of finding out about his great service, Feedbackity, which at first I kept mispronouncing as Feedback City, but it is Feedbackity. And it is a fantastic screening service that Adam has developed to make screenings accessible to the independent filmmaker. And so I am very excited to talk to him tonight. And he has brought along Rudi Womack, who is a filmmaker. I hear from Adam, a festival runner now soon or
Mm,
upcoming, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And he has used the Feedbackity service on both sides of the equation, submitting his content and actually providing feedback. So he's here to help us learn a little bit more about what it's actually like to go through the process. So first, I would love to just start by introducing or having Adam, just maybe you can introduce yourself to our
Oh,
group. Tell us a little
I
bit
would,
about
I, yeah,
your
I would love
background
to.
as a filmmaker. Yeah.
I would love to. As you said, my name is Adam. I'm the founder of Feedbackity. But before I was the founder of Feedbackity, I was an independent filmmaker. I still am. And that's obviously what led me to this. I have done and directed and filmed one documentary with my partner, who's not here. And I'm working on another film at the moment. And we've done a few short things in the meantime. So while I was doing that, the one thing that I always had trouble with was getting like the true and honest feedback. So I already felt it the first time was when I was editing my documentary. It's supposed to be a 60, it ended up being a 68-minute documentary. And we had a 2 hour, 47-minute rough cut or assembly, you can call it. And we, after quite a bit of time, it took us about nearly maybe a month to get feedback from 4 different people. And we basically got a big thumbs up. Like, this is great. We love it. As if it's a final version to an Oscar-winning film. And I realized, okay, this isn't working. So after a while, I slowly gathered like 1 or 2 people I could actually trust with the feedback. And it was also, I felt uncomfortable and always took time. The film, yeah, I finished editing the film. It was in the festivals. And while I was in a festival in Ireland, I was talking to also filmmakers who had the same problem. And I, one of the things that also ended up happening is I talked to a friend of mine who was writing a book, and she was also already having a problem. She says, I wrote this book. I sent it to my 2 best friends. I sent it to quite a few friends. 2 of my best friends were willing to read it, and they loved it. What can I do? I said, like, yeah, it doesn't mean it's good. And like, I was being honest. I said, it doesn't mean it's good. Just get some random people to read it. And that's kind of when it clicked. Okay, how do I get my film? How do I get random people to watch my films and give me feedback? So after that, got back home, and I started working on Feedbackity. The idea behind that is basically to get people who have unbiased people to watch independent films and give honest and constructive feedback that can actually help you edit your film, improve your films. It took me quite a bit of a while to figure out how to do it, because not everyone knows how to write feedback. Also, whether someone's 100% honest, he doesn't necessarily know how to express themselves and write feedback. And that's basically how I set my goal. What my goal was to get people who build a community of people who know how to write constructive feedback. And for the past 2 years, we've been growing this community. We have 3,000 registered feedbackers, and out of that, we have close to 1,000 verified feedbackers who have already submitted feedback and who actually know how to write feedback. I don't know if you want to get into it at the moment, or if you have any questions, or I can just explain how the process works.
Yeah, you prepared some content for us,
Yeah,
correct? Yes. So yeah, go
so
ahead and share that with us. That'd be
okay,
great.
so So that'll be fine. So I'm going to share my screen just one sec. There we go. Share. Sorry. Okay, so basically the idea at the beginning was to grow this community, and slowly, as I said, slowly I realized not everyone knew how to write feedback, and I decided I'm going to have verified feedbackers, meaning people who've written feedback before, and they tested and they know how to write feedback. So basically, I wanted to make the process also as simple as possible, instead of begging all your friends and family and having a long process. The system at the moment takes about 5 minutes to submit a film. And it's very simple. You log into the website, you press the submit your film button. Once you sign up, where basically email, first name, last name, and a password, you get to this area where you write your film title, synopsis, you select your film genres. That helps us also check who we're going to be sending the film out to, because I know my mother will hate to watch a horror movie. The feedback she will give will just be awful and very unhelpful. I'll end up with a romantic comedy if I listen to my mother's feedback for a horror film. You submit the link, and that's the first step. So basically, we just need the basic information of the film. Hopefully, you have all this on hand, and it's not time consuming. The next thing we do, figuring out the questions that you want to ask the community, that you want to ask the feedbackers. I realize it can be troublesome. Like, you don't always know. Sometimes people just want open feedback, but that's not always the best option, because when someone writes open feedback, they won't necessarily touch all the subjects that you want to know about. So we created a list of questions to simplify it. A few of the questions that we have, even if you don't check, they're still going to be in the list, because there's a few very important questions, which is, what are the scenes? People always want to look for the scenes that you dislike. You say you want to improve the film. What don't you like? But one of the things that sometimes people don't press and don't click on is, what scenes do you like? Which is also extremely important when you're getting feedback, because it also helps you figure out what really does work. So, because sometimes if you only read the negative, you can also be extremely bummed out, but also you'll forget that there's a lot of things in your film that also work. So even if someone doesn't click the what did you like, it's going to be a question that is going to be asked over there, but still click it. So we have these questions, which the basic questions, things that are frustrated, things that confuse you, what don't you understand in the film, and any other comments we also always put in. Then the second thing is very individual for each film. You have the beginning, the ending, the music, the humor, the pace, the story, the drama, and the characters. All things that are relevant to most films, except for the humor. Sometimes we have films that are like extremely dramatic and sad, and then they still click select all. So the feedback is like, I don't know, I didn't see any humor in it. The problem is when a feedback answers, I didn't see the pacing. There's no pacing in the film. That's slightly worse. And most importantly, the last thing you do is you can add any question you might have. So if there's you want to ask a specific question about a certain character, or you have any thoughts about the film that you want to hear, because obviously each film is very individual. So you might want to have feedback about a specific scene that you're not 100% sure about. So you can also add that as well. And after that, you just submit the film, and you don't have to do anything for 5 days. You just have to wait for an email back from us. So we guarantee the feedback within 5 days, not within 5 days, after 5 days. So if you submit on Sunday, by Friday, you will have feedback. We also guarantee feedback, not from one feedbacker. We guarantee feedback from a minimum of 10 feedbackers. We do that by getting feedback from at least 10 verified feedbackers. The verified feedbackers are paid, so they have an incentive. And also there's some sort of commitment because they are paid. And you also get additional feedback from first-time feedbackers, which means that most of the feedbackers provide very good feedback. First-time feedbackers mostly are approved to be verified feedbackers. But we can't guarantee the quality of the first-time feedbackers, obviously. So once you submit your form, we take your video and we re-upload it to a secure video hosting site, because I don't know if you know, you might have it on Google Drive, Vimeo, or YouTube. It's not that secure. We don't want anyone to be downloading your film and re-uploading it. So we use a service called Video Cipher at the moment, which allows us to watermark your film with the email and IP of the user. It's a moving watermark, and it also prevents anyone from downloading it. So that's at the moment as secure as it can get. There's always obviously ways to bypass it. I wouldn't suggest Marvel to submit their next Avengers, because people will obviously make the effort, but it's basically, we haven't had any problems at the moment, and it's extremely secure.
That's very cool.
So we create a film page for each film. Each film gets a designated page where they can watch the film securely. The users can watch the film securely. They have to obviously log in to watch it, and also that's where they see all the questions. We send the film out to the relevant feedback providers. As I said, we don't want you to be getting feedback from people who aren't relevant. It might be interesting if you send us an email and you say, I want to get feedback from people who don't like horrors. I'm submitting a horror, but I don't want people who like horror films. You can do that. Just it's normally not as helpful. And as I said, verified feedbackers, and there's a deadline. So at the moment, we've had about 100 or more films submitted. We've always made the deadline, and you normally get more than 10. Like if you submit, and you will never get just 10. So you'll get a minimum of normally of 15, 20. We've sent up to 30, 40. I think the maximum was like 42 feedback to one filmmaker.
Wow.
And so you get that within 5 days. It's normally tens of pages of text about your film, which it excites me as the founder of Feedbackity, but it also really excites me as a filmmaker.
Yeah.
At the beginning, I've watched nearly all the films submitted, and it's really excites me to see what's written. And then you receive the feedback, and I'll show you just a short example of the feedback, the type of feedback you receive. I think Rudi can also say, so this is, when you receive the feedback, it doesn't look exactly like this, but you get the age of the feedbacker, so you will know if it's from a 65-year-old woman, also the gender, or a 22-year-old male, and you also know the profession. It depends on whether the filmmakers or not. I think that's where the most of the most important thing is whether the filmmakers or not. But it's always interesting just to dive a little deeper into who's giving you the feedback.
Nice little demographic shot for you there. That's cool.
Yeah. So later on, also you'll be able to see who wrote. So you can see who wrote what, obviously, and we give the name. Just because on the website we didn't write the name, this is public, so you get the name, just the first name. So the feedbackers also know that you won't know who they are exactly. So if Rudi writes feedback, you might get Rudi now. So but you won't know that it's Rudi Womack. We have many Rudis, so yeah. So you know that information, and this is the feedback. Some people write a lot of text. Not everyone writes this much text, but some people write a lot of text. Some people write less text, and it's very depending on the person. The whole idea, though, is that people will express themselves. They don't say, I'm going to go to the next film because it's maybe more relevant. This was a short film. That was feedback for a short film that was being developed into a feature, for example. So he had a finished cut of his film. He just wanted to understand what works, what doesn't, what can make the feature film just better. So just say this is a very independent film. So if someone asks a question, you don't just say, yes, I like it, you have to explain why, like the reasoning behind the feedback. So if someone asks, what about the ending? You know, just I really enjoyed the ending. You say why you enjoy that, which is very important. And yeah, so that's basically how the system works. Try and make it as simple as possible. So within a week, you can go back to editing with this new insight that you've received. And yeah, I love the films that have been submitted. I also love the feedback. Is like already you grow to know them, and you get excited to read feedback from certain people, and yes, that's the process at the end of the day. If there's anything,
yeah, no, I mean, that was a great overview, and I love just a couple of things. I loved that you guys give so the quantity of the count of feedback that you get, the 10 plus, you know, because then you can really start to pull out trends as you look, you know, if you have 20 people all point out that there was this one part of the ending that they didn't really vibe with, then you really know, like, wow, if that many people all pointed out that bit, you know, it stands out, I think, more to you as a filmmaker. Having that amount of feedback is so great.
Yeah, so that's the one thing that I feel very important in the quantity, because if you get feedback from two different people, you can have two totally
Yeah.
different opinions, and they might both be right, but it's very confusing.
Yeah.
For example, we had this one documentary where this was like I love this example, because we had a documentary about, he followed people who live off the grid, and that's also the name of the film. You can watch it on Amazon Prime, and it's great. And he had a question about one character which he wasn't sure about, and I think over 90% of the people said, we don't understand why you put that character in the film. Like he followed a few people, and one of the people they just said, I don't understand why you put this character in the film. And that's very eye-opening, because if it's 1 out of 10 people, 5 out of 10, but it was really like a extremely high amount of people that gave it, or feedbacks that gave it, and then you can't ignore it. Even if you love the character, because you followed them for days, weeks, months, I don't know how long, but you can't ignore it. So those are things that really help with the quantity.
It gives a very collective type of feedback, right? Where you can sort out what might just be individual perspectives, and you could really see what the bulk of audience. And from what I saw, and one thing that I wanted to mention to everybody, I want to make sure I ask you about is, so this is like any length of project you can submit, right? There's you can short films, feature films. It's not just for some big feature. You can really submit. Didn't you say when we first chatted, you even had like a 90-second film?
A 60-second film is the shortest film we've received. It was also being made from a short film, a 60-second film. It's called Super Hearing Man, and it's like basically a joke, and he's expanding it into a feature, which I found it mind-blowing. But he like took that character and he's working on it to become a feature. So that's the one thing. You can submit. We make it, the pricing is different between short films and feature films, because also we pay the feedback. As I didn't mention, we pay the feedbackers. My goal as an independent filmmaker, after realizing how expensive it is to actually get outside opinions, not from friends or family, and I'm talking about like, so normally the options are, if it's not friends or family, it's normally professionals, and that's hundreds of dollars basically, just from an opinion from one person normally. And yeah, so I really wanted, the goal was to really make a affordable platform for independent filmmakers. So, but I also thought that it's very important to compensate the feedbackers, because they do put a lot of effort, and I think also the feeling that a filmmaker is actually paying you, you also feel that the person cares more about your opinion. That's my way of looking at it, because you can get free feedback, but normally people won't write 5 pages of free feedback. They'll say their general thoughts, but I think once you actually get paid, you realize the filmmaker really cares, because you have people on Reddit asking for feedback for their films, but you don't know if they want views or they just want to spread the word. But I think once someone actually pays you to express yourself, you understand they really want to hear your thoughts. So
yeah,
the difference of the pricing between a short film and a feature film mainly goes because the feedbackers are paid slightly less. We pay between $5 to $8 per film to each feedbacker, verified feedbackers. And that's just something that's important to also point out.
yeah.
So yeah, so
I
it's
think that's
there's a
so
small,
great.
yeah, so there's a small difference in the pricing. Yeah.
And in any genre too, correct?
Any genre. We accept any except
Yeah.
for adult. I'm
Oh
assuming
yeah.
that's not there.
I
I'm
don't know. Would
assuming that's not.
anybody want that screened?
You never know. You never know.
Quality control.
But yeah, so we're ready to accept any genre. We've received every kind of genre. We've received. Obviously, I suggest rough cuts. Because some people submit finished films. It depends what you want the feedback for. Rough cuts obviously helps you more with the editing.
Yeah.
We've received kind of assemblies. So we've even had someone submit like the first 20 minutes of a feature documentary, the first act of a feature documentary. And then she submitted a feature documentary, but that's what she had edited, and she wanted to get the opinion on that. So we've basically nearly everything in film that you want that feedback for.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you want to ask your friends, you don't have to ask your friends. You can ask us. Basically, that's the idea.
Yeah, don't ask your mom, right? Well, this is, I think, a perfect time to bring in Rudi, because like what Adam's pointing out is, I think, another real great benefit of participating with his service is that you can win-win on both sides. You can submit your content and benefit from screening feedback, and you can also become a verified feedbacker and earn a little cash while you're helping other filmmakers. So Rudi, you've done both elements with Adam's service. Can you first tell us a little bit about your filmmaking career and just introduce yourself to our group tonight, and then talk about your experience from both perspectives that you've been able to have with Feedbackity?
Well, happy, and thank you very much for having me here.
Yeah, it's great.
So just a quick background. I've been making films since middle school, high school, something like that. So I've kind of always been a filmmaker. I came here to Los Angeles, where I'm based out of, and I got a job as an editor. And that's kind of how my professional career has moved. Is I more edit than do on-set stuff, although I love directing. Directing's really where the passion is. So as an editor, I've seen films in every single stage of their completion. Sometimes it's just the raw footage that they've shot and they just kind of dump it on me. Sometimes I've seen what other editors have done with it, and I get to come in and kind of play with the footage. I mean, I've done everything from narrative to commercial to music video. So I've kind of seen it all, and I've kind of worked on just about everything there is. So that's why whenever I'm looking at a work in progress, I usually approach it from obviously an editor's point of view, because more often than not, I find that with independent films, they're so attached to the project because they had to go through all the hassle of writing the script and then raising the money and then doing all the pre-production and then, hair on fire, shoot the thing. And, sometimes as little as a week. It's crazy. So by the time they get to post-production, a lot of indie filmmakers have lost all objectivity when it comes to their film. They don't know, if certain moments are hitting emotionally, or if it's a comedy, if it's funny, or if it's a horror, if it's scary, something like that.
Yeah. So
that's why a service like Feedbackity is just so phenomenal, because you get that fresh point of view. And particularly, as Adam mentioned, you don't just get it from one person or two people, you get it from sometimes dozens of people. So you do see trends, you do see what's working, but you also see interpretations of your work that you didn't necessarily intend. Sometimes that's good and bad.
Yeah.
So it's really great when you've been on a project for so long, and it kind of becomes the day job, it becomes the routine, that when you send it into a place like Feedbackity, it gets a new breath of fresh life into it, and it's really exciting to see that audience feedback come in for the first time. So the first time I used it was on a short film that I had directed. We were having some trouble really narrowing in on the story, and I was in particular having trouble really nailing the tone, because there was a very specific tone with it. And so what I did is, as Adam kind of mentioned, I went on to Reddit and I was asking for feedback, and he found me there and he was like, hey, there's this thing called Feedbackity. So I submitted, and the insight that the feedbackers gave me was phenomenal. It was the missing ingredient. So I was able to go back and rework a lot of the scenes of the film, and almost immediately we started getting picked up by festivals left and right. So even as someone who does editing as a day job, it is still incredibly valuable to get that other perspective, get that other feedback. So then I did it again for another short film that I had directed. That one we were more concerned with the visual effects, the music, not necessarily the story, more of all the bells and whistles on the film. And that's what I liked about Feedbackity, was we could customize our questions. So we could kind of hone in on the things that we were a little bit rocky on. And that really helped us kind of shape up some of the things that we were uncertain if it was connecting with the audience. And then I used the service again a third time. This one was for a feature film that I was editing, and the edit was very different than what the script was. We ended up rearranging a lot of the scenes. We ended up kind of focusing on one of the characters more than one of the other ones, from the script. So it was really helpful to see how the audience was feeling about it. In particular, we had 2 separate endings for the feature. So we were able to specifically ask the audience, which ending did you like the most?
Nice.
And, I don't remember how many people responded to it. I just remembered when we sat down, the producers, the director, myself, we all sat down and we were going through it. It took us like 3.5 hours to go through all the feedback.
Wow.
That's how much it was. I mean, my whiteboard was just full of like trends that we were seeing, things that we were seeing, specific. Some people are calling out specific lines of dialogue that they liked or didn't like. And it was brilliant, because not only could you see the places where you needed to improve, but also the places that were actually working for the audience. And so we knew not to touch those, don't hassle with it. It's working, leave it alone. If it's not broke, don't fix it.
Right.
So that's also a hugely important aspect of audience feedback is, if something's effective, let it be.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you have that confidence to know, like, that landed. I can move on from that. I know. Yeah. And so, and then when did you start taking on the other side of the service role and giving feedback?
It was somewhere between the first and second submission. I saw that you could sign up to be a feedbacker, and I watched so many independent films because that's really where my heart is. I really love independent film and independent story. And I love helping out independent filmmakers when I can. So I signed up for it. The first one, when you're not a verified feedbacker, you do for free. They review the quality of your feedback, and then you get verified.
Yeah.
So the first one was a short documentary that I had done. or sorry, not that I had done, excuse me, that I had given feedback on. And it had a lot of good stuff with it. I just kind of felt some of the scenes were out of order. So that's kind of what my feedback was. Again, I approach it from a very editor kind of perspective on it. So that's kind of what my feedback was. Apparently, it was good enough for me to get verified. Apparently, it was on point enough. So after that, I've given feedback on, I think, three other narrative films. All of them short films. I haven't done a feature yet. But you know, every single film has its strong points. Every single film has its weak points, and the entire point of Feedbackity as a feedbacker isn't to just go in and criticize. It's to help bolster what works with a film and what doesn't. It's to help other filmmakers see where they can trim something out, where they can improve on something, where things are working, if it's funny or scary or dramatic, and leave it alone. And it's really to just kind of help them shine a light on their project so it can stand out and it can be the best possible film it can be.
That's so great. And so Adam and Rudi, I'd love for you kind of both to just talk from your own perspective as filmmakers and users of this service. Why is the step of screening, no matter, and getting this kind of feedback, no matter how long, you know, whether you got a short film, a documentary, a feature film, whatever you're working on, why is this step so important? And what would you say you absolutely miss the opportunity for if you don't find a way to get valid screening like you're providing through Feedbackity?
You want to take that first, Adam?
You go ahead. I'll tell you, in my opinion, the important, I'm sorry. The importance is just, you can't rely on you can rely, but it's just hard to get the feedback from people around you. I think I might have been confused with the question. I'm sorry.
No, it's just, I really want to hone in for everybody that's watching, because we have a ton of indie filmmakers here in our state, in our local industry in New Mexico. And the reason I was so excited to find you and Rudi, Adam found me much the way he found you. He just popped into my email one day.
Nice.
You're very resourceful, Adam. We're going to give you big credit for that. But because it provided all of a sudden an affordable channel. And I think it's one of those steps that, you know, there's some things you can kind of skip steps on when you're trying to produce an indie film to make it work, right? But this to me seems like one of those things that it's really important to start understanding. It's just a step you should not skip. And so I'm just trying to reinforce that with our audience tonight and to hear from you as a filmmaker.
Sorry. So I'll say this is from my personal experience. As a filmmaker. From my personal experience, it's just, it really helps you focus on as you said before, and I think we said, on the things that work and the things that die. Also the structure. The first film I directed was about a very close friend of mine, and the second one that I'm directing now is even worse. It's about my mother. So it's two subjects that you really love. And the first one I also edited myself with my partner. We direct and edit together. But there's things about the character that you love, and we showed it at the time I was in school at the time. So they also help you with the feedback, and you show it to teachers. You get like 3 different inputs. And the scene that we love, we thought it was the most honest scene. He's tied. It was doing like this road trip on an electric toy car. That's the documentary, basically, a midlife crisis. And he's sitting there tired and he's depressed. Everyone thinks he's ridiculous, and he suddenly farts. I'm sorry. And we thought this was great. This was true. It was like a real honest moment. And suddenly everyone's saying, from that moment, I hated the character. And
Wow.
and you know, you can't ignore that. You can't, you don't want to and you want to hate your character, but it's like something like that if we would have left in the film because we thought it was a nice, honest moment and a little bit amusing, you suddenly the audience wouldn't like the character, and if they don't like the character, there goes your film, basically.
Yeah.
So I think as a filmmaker, that input, especially as an independent filmmaker, where you are so connected, whether it's a documentary about a person that you know, you don't have to like them like your friends, but you, at the end of the day, when you film a documentary, you with someone, and every scene is sweat, blood, and money, and also obviously a feature film as well, and a short film. Every scene you thought about and you kind of grow to love. But you also want people to watch it to love that film. You also want people who watch the film to connect to it. And it's easy to say, it's not easy to say, but you can say I'm an artist, it's my film, but you can look at it that way, and everything has to go exactly how I imagine and how I like.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, I think it's also extremely important for film to be watched and enjoyed. And appreciated, and that's why hearing what the audience says is so important. I think if Martin School says it does it, then who am I to say I don't agree with that process, you know?
So Rudi, let me ask you a quick question, because Adam mentioned this earlier. It might have been before we started going live into the recording, but as a feedbacker, you grow a lot as a filmmaker. Would you agree with that? Just going through the process of giving other people notes helps you learn more about what your own work is like as a filmmaker?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, Tarantino said it best when he said, I didn't go to film school, I went to films. So the thing is, and I'm not knocking film school, I'm a huge film school proponent. But I do agree that when you watch a lot of content and a lot of stuff that's outside of what you would normally watch, you start to see what works, what doesn't. And then you can start applying that to your own projects. And not necessarily just in terms of the technical side of things, not just the camera work or the lighting or the costumes or things like that. While all of that is incredibly important, a film is more than the sum of its parts. You can have a film that is perfectly technical, even well acted, but if the story doesn't connect with the audience, then it doesn't matter. So it doesn't matter if you have something like a documentary or even an experimental film or even a mainstream film. If the audience doesn't feel something from it, then you have not accomplished your goal as a storyteller. And ultimately, that's what we are. We are storytellers. It's one of the oldest jobs in human civilization, was the old man passing down, stories next to the fire. So it needs to grip the audience in such a way. And when you see what works in films, what doesn't work in films, as someone who gives feedback and is a programmer for a film festival, I see a lot of films. You start to see what kind of beats people hit or what kind of emotions people hit, and more importantly, how they do it. And then that does honestly start to shape your own work. So I think there's an incredible advantage into being a feedbacker, because you sign up with Feedbackity, you start seeing these movies and you start looking at them critically, and you start thinking about what does work and what doesn't work, and then you go review your own projects and you're like, I'm making some of those same mistakes, I need to fix it.
You're like, oh, that's what that looks like. Okay. That's fantastic. Well, let me ask you guys a few questions, and Adam, you might be able to fill these more, but I have a few questions from our audience in the chat that I just want to bring up really quickly. We have a real mission amongst our community to really be the storytellers of the underrepresented and the inclusive and sometimes the more forward thinking. So some of the questions from our audience are more surrounded around do you have a lot of content that comes in that is more about kind of our more modern human issues and dilemmas that we're facing in current time, these stories of representation, inclusion, even reflecting on periods of oppression, those types of things? Do you get a lot of content? Do your feedbackers, if you do they feel comfortable giving feedback in that kind of realm?
So I think first of all, we have. I can't speak about every film,
Sure.
but we've received a film recently called Clarkston, which is also produced by Katie Couric.
Oh yeah, Katie Couric.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So which was pretty amazing. But which deals with the community of a community in Clarkston where a lot of immigrants go, where a lot of migrants go, and it's, I can't remember, I think it's somewhere south. So it's so yeah, she got the feedback. She was happy with the feedback. I don't know. I think it's also, I can't check the political views of everyone who submits feedback, but it seems to be working. We've had other films as well also that deal with minorities, and the feedback works.
Yeah.
I think he's stuck. Yeah, the feedback.
Yeah, there
works.
you go.
So,
we got stuck a little there.
You can, so you can definitely submit. You will obviously be getting feedback from people that might not have the same outlook in life. That can happen. As I said, everything is anonymous in a way. Like you won't know who submitted the feedback. So I think people are also very open to express themselves in a true manner. So
yeah,
we don't censor anyone, but we haven't had any issues.
and from what do you know about your feedbackers? Do you keep it pretty anonymous even from your end and base their selection more on the feedback that they've provided versus any kind of like demographics?
Yeah, so at the moment you can't really choose the demographic that you want, unless you can just, if you submit a film and say, listen, I only want to hear feedback from females from 20 to 30, we can do that. So you can send us an email and we'll
filter
we'll filter it out.
Yeah.
I've had people ask me afterwards for the next feedback to be from a specific demographic. That does work. Or sometimes we even had people submit the film one time and they say, listen, I want feedback from the same feedbackers, because I want to see what they think after re-editing the film. So
do you have a lot of people that resubmit after they get a first round of feedback?
Yeah, it happens. Great. Not everyone does it. It's also very independent film, so some people can't afford, but it does happen when there's a significant change. I think if people have some sort of significant change, then they will submit. Twice. I think the maximum is 3 times from someone who submitted. I think I told you before, first act of a film, submitted a rough cut, and then she submitted another cut of the film. So that definitely does happen, and I think normally like a new set of eyes would be the best. Sometimes feedbackers won't necessarily want to watch the same film twice, but that's but that can happen. But the in general, you get feedback from very different people, and you'll probably know that. You'll probably understand that. I think we had a film about the LGBTQ characters. So they're asked if it's if the feedback is part of the community, and because it's something that's important to know, for example.
For sure.
So yeah, but we don't. That's not something I see. Just someone popped in. how gender diverse is your group? We don't. I think it's a problematic question to ask people, I think, when signing up. So I know there is a representative, and I think in the film that they did ask about it, it wasn't 1 out of 10. So it was I think there were quite a large representative.
Yeah.
I think.
Rudi,
So,
let me field this next question to you in our chat. From a filmmaker's perspective, do you think it's more valuable to receive feedback from a target demographic? Or do you think it's better to get it from a general open-ended audience, especially if your film lends towards a specific niche, excuse me?
I think I might have lost you there.
Oh, are you there?
Oh yeah, there we go. I'm so sorry.
No,
I
that's
lost
okay.
you in the middle of your question.
That's okay. We're a little glitchy. It's totally fine. That's the life on Zoom, right? So from a filmmaker's perspective on this kind of topic about the demographics of your feedbackers, do you think it's more valuable to receive feedback from a to target who and specify your demographic audience, or do you think it's better just to go general and open, especially if maybe your film is leaning towards a specific like niche or genre?
I would say it's more specific to each project, how you want to go. In general, my philosophy of life is, homogeny is the death of innovation. So I try to receive as much feedback from as broad of an audience as possible, and as broad of a background as possible. That said, if I were to make a, let's say, horror film, a lot of people love horror and a lot of people are turned off by horror. So less specific to a demographic, I think just in general taste.
Right.
I wouldn't want to hear a lot of feedback from people who don't like horror, because in general, it's just not going to help. It's not going to be positive.
Right.
But also the flip side of that coin is there are some really fanatic horror fans out there. So sometimes, they get a little bit, shall we say, uppity about their horror. So you want to strike that balance. It's interesting because Adam was saying they don't really target demographics, but one of the short films that I had sent into Feedbackity, it was kind of an ensemble piece. There was a number of characters, persons of color, in the film, and a lot of the feedback that we got from it, the people giving the feedback volunteered, hey, I am of this background or of this demographic, and I thought you handled this character well, or I don't think this character would do this sort of a thing. So while that information is not provided by Feedbackity, those individuals volunteered that information, right, and that did actually impact what moments we kept in the film, what moments we didn't keep in the film. So in that regard, it was incredibly beneficial to kind of have a broad audience, because I don't think there was a specific demographic that would have helped move the film one way or the other in a positive direction. I think it helped getting a lot of information from a lot of people and a variety of backgrounds.
Yeah. I think too, especially like if you're submitting like maybe your first rough cut, right? Like at that point, you don't even really know how narrow it should be. So yeah, let a wide variety of people. And I really like, Adam, what you've created in the way that it just seems to allow a very open, like you said, anonymous space. So everybody can feel very comfortable to just stay in the realm of critical eye and constructive feedback, which is the ultimate goal of screening, right? So that you can really walk away with, like Rudi said, dozens of papers in your hand and a 3-hour meeting and your wall full of sticky notes of all of the things that you want to do with that feedback. And it seems like the space you've created really just allows everybody to feel comfortable to do that within that space. Would you agree with that?
I would agree. I think as of now, everyone has also been polite. Even if someone was a fan, like didn't like something, I've only had one person who wrote decent feedback. He knew how to write feedback, but he was offensive to a point where I said, okay, we can't. I don't want him to be part of the platform, because it was just downright mean and aggressive, and yeah, not feedback that anyone would enjoy to read. So I'm saying that in general, even though people have this anonymity, I think they still realize they're talking to filmmakers, creators, and everyone's respectful, except for that one. Except for that one.
But it sounds like you keep a good eye on moderation, and so that you're able to catch those.
Yeah. I think that's very important, because that's at the beginning basically how it started. We were paying everyone who was writing feedback, and then very quickly realized that a lot of it was a waste of money, and that's also one of also a waste of time for the filmmakers, because that's when I also realized that you have to have the one free feedback. It also helps get rid of the people who just want to earn money and don't care about the process of helping filmmakers, which I think is also very important in this in the system. So.
It's such a supportive process that you've put together, and and it seems so technical, right? Because we're just submitting content and getting feedback and stuff, but it really is a supportive kind of community underneath it all that you've created. Hats off to you for building that into your master plan.
Yeah, that's a go.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's ready to go.
Have we not anything else you guys want to say before I ask our audience if any of them have any more questions for you guys? If you guys have questions out there, feel free to throw them in chat.
So Laura just asked me how to sign up. I think how to apply. I think I'm assuming it's to apply as a feedbacker. So yeah, so I can show it's extremely simple. I'll just share the screen very quickly. I'm assuming, Laura, Laura, am I correct that that's what you were talking about? Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. Okay. So can you see my screen? Yeah. So I also want to make it as simple as possible to become a feedbacker, and you press the become a feedbacker link over here, and you press join us. Basically, you only submit your full name. We need your full name. That's also a full name, email. You create a password. Then we need to also guarantee that you're a real person. Soon, hopefully, we'll have also a telephone verification, which we can also implement, watermark, and increase the security. And afterwards, basically, once you do this, you just submit your date of birth. The gender, you can fill in any gender. I think Laura also asked that, and then the genres of film you like. So that's also very important to put in the correct things, because you might be getting you might be missing films that you might enjoy, and you might also getting films that you don't enjoy. At the beginning, I wanted to have as much information as possible about the feedbackers, but then I talked to my lawyer and I realized some things are just very complicated.
Yeah.
Very complicated, especially when you want to share the info. Like you can't have anyone recognizable. So as much as more info is better, sometimes it can just cause problems.
You've stricken a nice balance, Adam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you saw Jay and Silent Bob, where they tracked down the people who wrote bad things on them on the internet, so that you don't want that to happen. So yeah, so it's a very simple process, and I don't think, So
as you get selected for a film, like, so after you sign up, you'll get your first one that you'll get selected to watch a film and give your feedback, and that one's you don't get paid for, but that's kind of submitting your feedback to get verified, right?
Yeah. So the first film you do, you don't get You don't get paid, as we mentioned before, and you get verified. You get everything's done by email, so you get also a notification that you received feedback request via email. You have to log into the website or anything, and then you'll get a link, and that's where you submit the film. It's trying to be simple, and we pay via PayPal.
Nice.
Yeah.
Here's another question for you, Adam. So how rough can your cut be, right? How in progress is it? Does it need to be to a certain level of polish before you submit, or can it be pretty raw?
I think we've even had assemblies, basically, which I don't necessarily suggest submitting. If it's extremely rough, we suggest we normally add some text explaining, depending how rough it is, like there can be additional information that filmmakers want to add, just saying the music isn't final, but basically anything. You might have, occasionally there might be one feedbacker who just doesn't understand what's going on, but most feedbackers realize they're watching
A rough cut.
not a finished version of the film, and there can be visual effects missing, and they can so I think 95% of the film, even if we don't write anything, they realize certain things aren't finished. Sound is normally something we would mention, that obviously has a big impact on the viewing of the enjoyability of the film. So once someone's aware, okay, this is it, the sound isn't great, but it's going to be, so then you can focus on the other things. But if you don't, then you're going to focus on the sound, basically. I think that's the one thing that's always
to piggyback off that. The feature film that I had sent in for Feedbackity, it didn't have any visual effects in it at all. The music was all temp. Like we had music from, Chris Nolan films. We had John Williams thrown in it, and just like temp tracks just thrown in. There were green screens all over the place. There was audio that was so bad we were like subtitling it, just so people knew. There were 2 different endings on it, so it was a very, very rough cut that we sent in. And still, a lot of the feedback that we got was incredibly valuable. Just because, we threw a card at the beginning, said, hey, all these things, we're aware that it's not done. So just, focus on the characters, the story, the emotions you're feeling from it. And then, of course, we had very specific questions that we asked. And all of the feedback that we received was right on point. Like, nobody fixated on any of the things that were like, yeah, we know there's green screens. Yes, we know the audio.
Right.
So it was a pretty rough project. And even then, it was still valuable, incredibly valuable.
So I guess it kind of depends on what your kind of feedback you're really wanting at that moment in time. Like, if you're really looking for character feedback, a disclosure like, hey, the post stuff isn't done on this, so you're going to have temp music and no visual effects. But that kind of, I think too, I love that. That's one of the things that I love that you did, Adam, and that I know Rudi has even mentioned, just the way that you can customize your questions for the feedbackers, so that you really can drive home what you're looking for as the filmmaker. I think is a great way to also keep them focused, where, if you are submitting a rough cut, it's a great way to keep them focused just where you want them on the character review or something. Nice. Any other questions from our audience this evening? I will admit, Adam is in Israel, and so it is very early or late. We couldn't decide if it was early or late for him. So we're going to thank him for joining us. Laura, did you have a question that you wanted to throw out there?
Well, I mean, both of you are extraordinarily, you're just so clear on this vision. And I at first, when I was reading what that was, I was making stuff up in my head about what it might be. And now you explained it so quickly, which is amazing. But the more I'm sitting here with it and thinking about how it plays out, I guess to put it in context, like with advertising, this is basically a brilliant, ungodly cheap focus group. And I had an old boyfriend in New York who was with an ad, like a big ad agency. They would spend $100,000 on one sit down meeting for Cheerios or whatever. So I think if people understood the focus group aspect of this and how expensive that is to get what you're providing, and not only that, you have this conscience for making sure that the feedbackers are getting paid. So if people think about that, it's like, this is so cheap for what you're getting. I'm really kind of blown away. And I guess the only reason, Adam, that I was concentrating on the LGBTQIA thing wasn't because I think you're uninclusive or something. It's that I've been in dialogue with like SAG in LA and places like that. And what people don't understand is, as Me Too played out, all of the executives that left have been replaced by either women or people from LGBTQIA communities. So the reason I'm having to face that is because I'm going and dealing with all these activists and groups who are saying, if you aren't starting to be really sensitive to those groups, because they're now in all the positions of power that got vacated by all the Harvey Weinsteins of the world, you're going to be left behind. So I was just interested in how you folks were dealing with that inclusion, since you put gender on there. So that was my question was just, what this new frontier and the people who are running things now are generally from that community.
Yeah, so when gender involves, when you do submit a gender, you can put in any gender, basically. And I really strive to be as inclusive as possible. And I think, but as I said, there's just so many basic laws where when you want to create a company, especially as an artist and a filmmaker, and I love people. One of my side projects was a photography project where you just I take photos of people in the street wearing a tiger suit. It's very strange, but I'm saying, suddenly you talk to a lawyer and he says, yeah, you can't ask any, like, you basically, you can't get all that information, but hopefully everyone feels that they can be part of it. Like, and thanks for the kind words, Laura. And I just wanted to say, I really wanted to be as cheap as possible and as affordable as possible. That's like really my goal. We do have competitor. There's only at the moment another website doing this online. I realized doing this offline costs tens of thousands of dollars, and there's a website called iScreening Room, which is, they also give you feedback and try and understand your demographics, but I think it's not as relevant for independent filmmakers, and they charge between $10,000 to $15,000 for the service, and I'm like, that's not for independent filmmakers, and I wish it could be cheaper. Like, I really wish, like, sometimes I say, geez, $110 for some independent filmmakers is also a lot of money, and I wish it could be cheaper, but sadly at the moment, because I want the feedback is also get paid, and that's also
I think you found a really good balance, Adam. You really did with your pricing. It truly is amazing. And I mean, for most independent filmmakers, that kind of a cost, that's like their whole short film budget, for that kind of a screening cost. So what you've done, and I think the balance that you were able to figure out to provide as just kind of an entrepreneur and a filmmaker doing this, is really quite wonderful. And I think you just found a really nice way to balance it and really make it, like I said, a safe space for people just to really get constructive, critical feedback, to provide it themselves, to even grow their own perspective. So, I think that it's just really, really good. And so Laura's complimenting you again, Rudi. Absolutely. You guys really, it's just something that's, I find invaluable. And I was so excited when I met you, Adam, to bring you into this community from Israel, right into the heart of New Mexico in Albuquerque, so that my community could start taking advantage of this service. Because honestly, I'll tell everybody, I wasn't born in Albuquerque, but I grew up here since I was 5 years old. So it's my hometown. And when I first started reviewing Adam's website, when I first heard about it to see if I wanted to follow up with him, I was like, oh, these are Albuquerque prices. So we love it out here. This is our budget right there. I was like, this is Albuquerque prices. We can afford this. So you're really making a lot attainable for a lot of filmmakers that really need it. So Adam is going to actually has agreed that Feedbackity is going to be one of our preferred service providers. So we are going to stay in great touch with Adam and feature Feedbackity in our newsletters and our social media sites. And Rudi, please stay in touch with us. Let us know what's going on with your film festival, your work. We'd love to make sure that we stay in touch and see the great work you're putting out there and the community as a storyteller.
I just want to also add that Feedbackity also is partnered with my film festival. It's the Wyoming International Film Festival. It's based out of Cheyenne, Wyoming. And so anybody who submits to Feedbackity gets a 30% discount to the festival.
Nice. Very cool. You're helping making sure you're getting good screenings there, Rudi. Good call.
I know for a fact they've all had feedback on it.
Yeah, exactly.
I just want to also just say thank you so much. I really appreciate you for inviting me, and thank you, Rudi, for taking the time. That's also I've never met Rudi in real life, and I've met him through the service, and so I was very excited when he reached out about his film festival, because that's also something that the idea of helping also people get into film festivals, and also hopefully helping filmmakers is always great. If you know anyone who might be able to use it, so next time your friend asks you, can you please watch my film and tell me what you think, please send them our way. It means a lot. It's very hard getting the word out, spreading the word out, but working on it, as I said, stalking people on Reddit.
Yes. Hey, you're hustling. You got to do what you got to do out there to get your word out. I tell you. No, that's fantastic. We're going to do everything we can to help make sure that as many people in our community know about the great work you're doing. And Adam, I'm also going to be sharing this with our sister chapters at Women in Film and Television US and Women in Film and Television International.
Thank you so much.
Thank
you so much.
We want all of our women in film sisters to know about your service. It would be a huge asset to our complete international community to partner with you.
That would be incredible. That really is. Thank you so much. I truly appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I'll also, once we're off the record, anyhow, I'll send you an email saying thank you, and anyhow, thanks a lot.
Absolutely.
Really, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
Thank you guys for having me.
It's been great. Thank you so much. And obviously, thank you so much for everybody that's giving us thank yous in our chat. This has been great. I will be, for all of those that are going to be watching this on YouTube, thank you for taking time out of your day to watch our recording. This is Carrie Rose O'Connell with New Mexico Women in Film. Don't forget to go to feedbackity.com to see Adam's great service. You will also be able to find links to his website on our website at newmexicowomeninfilm.com and NMWIF.com. And we will have this up on our YouTube page soon. So thank you so much. I'm going to